Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner, and welcome and good morning.
What we have behind us here is a diner that Tesla is actually received approvals for in Santa Monica. And this is going to be a diner, drive-in, movie theater, supercharger combination, and restaurant right in the heart of Los Angeles.
I love this look. I know it's a little different than one of our AI images, but it is definitely an artist rendered type of image. And I'm thinking, okay, they're talking about showing movie previews as opposed to movies. But how often do you, if you go to a theater, how often do you just stand there in the lobby and watch all the previews run while you're waiting for the concession or something?
And it turns out that there is a second story. We've got another picture here, Jesse, if you can bring that up. It's drive-in-1. Now you can see the upper level portion of this diner and a couple of screens, fairly large screens. And, you got to hand it to Tesla. This is a pretty retro-looking type diner. And, they could have built the equivalent of a gas station, where you go to get maybe some snacks and they've got the stalls and all of that. But instead, they went with a theme and a retro theme. If you notice, the diner matches the colors of the Supercharger. And again, creature comforts, the second story there. It'll be a great place to hang out and, have some coffee or whatever you do at a diner and watch some movie clips. What I found really interesting about this whole concept is that it is in the heart of Santa Monica, which is really where Tesla started their first sales and service organization.
Right.
And there's a backstory there, which is really interesting. It's on our website under Gallery, and it's VIN number 99 is the story. But it goes something like this. Tesla was ready to start their first service and sales leased type space. So they went to some commercial, property owners there in Santa Monica, and it was at the juncture of 405 and Santa Monica Boulevard. There was a building that they wanted to lease. So both Martin Eberhardt and Mark Tarpening went out to see this building owner to lease some space. And he looked at their financials and he said, "Nah, I don't think so, guys. There's not, there are too many red flags here."
Sure.
So Mark and Martin left, and a couple weeks later, this building owner, it turns out that at this point Elon came to see him, and he had a satchel and wasn't quite sure what was in that briefcase. And anyway, Elon, he started to encourage this guy to reconsider his position about not leasing to them. And he opened up his satchel full of patents, and he showed him what the company was doing. And that despite the fact that the financials didn't look stellar, there was a lot of reasons that this building owner should consider letting them lease because of the bright future that Elon presented to him.
Sure.
Well, as it turns out, part of the deal eventually was that he would lease to them provided that Elon would sell him one of the first signature 100 Tesla Roadsters. And Jim, this building owner, wanted VIN number 100, but it was already spoken for. In fact, the Fresh and Easy CEO already had purchased that car.
Right.
So they settled on VIN 99, which is still a signature 100 car. With a second provision, which was that not only did he have to give him a signature car, but he had to paint it the same color as his 1931 Bugatti in France. And it was a sort of a bright green color, not quite like the Lamborghini greens. So so the reason we know all this VIN 99 actually came to our service center about 3 years ago or so. And the owner, Jim, told me this story about how he eventually decided, it's kind of risky, but I'm going to do it because I got a Roadster out of the deal. And so it turns out that was their first location, which is about a half a mile from this diner location. This first service center was at the juncture of Santa Monica Boulevard and the 405, and this is a little bit further east, right around UCLA there. So it's kind of nostalgic that we're seeing the first representation of what the future of a gas station might look like being presented to us by Tesla.
Oh, I think this is a really cool concept. I honestly think it's an overdue concept as well. Having, something more than just your gas station fare, or how many superchargers are there that are next to fast food restaurants? Here in Arizona, it's Carl's Jr.
Yeah, that's about it.
And, I also thought it was pretty cool, you looking at that other picture on the screen behind. If Jesse wanted to bring that picture back up again, it's a picture of Starman.
Yes, yep.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah, that drive-in 2, the picture that you just had.
Drive-in 1, actually.
Drive-in 1 is what
Oh, okay, yeah, drive-in 1.
And if you notice on the left side, you have the flamethrower, or the not flamethrower.
Not a flamethrower.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, a Cybertruck in the front, which has the "Don't Panic" sticker on the side of it.
Yes. So all kinds of fun little Easter eggs.
Now, of course, this is an artist's rendition. This building does not exist yet, but this is the planned finished product. If you want to see what 7001 West Santa Monica Boulevard currently looks like, let's bring up that picture, guys. It's the first picture in that folder. And you'll see that there is going to be quite a transformation taking place here. That's what's there right now.
Yeah, it's just an old pizza parlor that went out of business probably a couple of years ago.
So one thing, though, you guys see on the right, is that a bunch of apartments? So there's going to be a movie theater just playing constantly right next to those apartments?
If you look back at that picture of the diner, they had some tall walls, it looked like, right behind the screens. For those of you that are my age, that building there was Shakey's Pizza. And as soon as I say that, these guys are going to say, what? What kind of pizza place is that, right?
Yeah.
It was a very popular pizza place in the last century.
So it looks like it's like bamboo or something.
Yeah. But I think you're right. They're going to have to find some way to limit the amount of light that's being shined into those windows, if that is an apartment. But again, hats off to Tesla. The project architect actually is here in Chandler, Arizona, Stantec Architects. And the contractor is in Glendale, California. It is PCL Construction Services. And it looks like they're going to be breaking ground here imminently. All the permitting process is done. It will house 32 supercharger stalls. And of course, the restaurant with various food offerings, rooftop seating, and 2 theater screens where clips of famous movies will be shown, according to CEO Elon Musk. So there you have it.
We got a couple questions this morning and a couple comments. To start with, YouTube, PYGKLB, good morning. He says, good morning from overcast Western Oregon. I'm already jealous because it's supposed to be 116 cool degrees here in Phoenix, Arizona today.
YouTube, Nalver53, welcome back. He says, good morning from Santee, California. It's 85 degrees outside right now. Yeah, that's probably one reason to live in California.
It probably is. Yeah.
YouTube, David Harvey, it looks like a technical question or an update. He says, hello there from England. Welcome. Long ways away. Do you have any insights on what can be done to remove the battery fuse requires replacement alert? Tesla tells me that there is a 4-month delay on the new pyro fuse. I'm not familiar with that error. I'd have to get with our technical guys next door. But one option that we have here in the States is if Tesla doesn't have the part in stock, eBay, for example, a lot of dismantlers are buying up collision-damaged Teslas and then parting them out. And it's entirely possible that you'll find that part that you need. It'll be used, but I guarantee you the difference between a new and a used fuse is negligible.
Yeah. Now, do you have to drop the battery to get to that pyro fuse, or do you know?
I believe it's on the top, and yes, you have to do a drop.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise the space between that and the floorboard of the car is too tight.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it's not a necessarily easy thing to do, but it's eminently a doable thing.
Yeah. YouTube, PYGKLB, Shakey's Pizza. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And, you know, they used to have pretty good pizza, too. It was thin. They had good beer. You could get a pitcher of beer there. We used to go there after roller skating in Rochester, New York. And at the end of a good roller blading session, we would go to Shakey's Pizza and have some beer and pizza.
You actually had roller blades?
Roller
was the
skates. Sorry.
skates?
Yeah, skates. Right.
So, you know, I mean, I can remember going to the skating rinks, and no such thing as rollerblades yet. On Instagram, Canelectron.
I usually have me read those.
You should read that one.
Okay. Canelectron Kialova says hi.
No,
Well,
I think it's Can Electronic something.
all right, Jesse's going to take a shot at it too. Creative name. That's great
Very
job.
good.
And he says hi. Well, welcome. He's on Instagram. And
Yeah,
then we
so
have
it's hold on real quick. It's Can Electronic KYA Leva.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hi and good morning. Thank you for coming here. For our Instagram followers, I do know that we don't have the picture of the background up yet. You're still seeing our green screen. Head on over to YouTube if you want to see the full experience with the pictures. We are trying to get Instagram up to speed with everything else, and hopefully we'll be able to do that soon.
Are you going to read that name? Or you want me to read it?
Mount Alariza Mechanic on
Not bad.
Instagram
Okay. All right.
also
Yeah.
says hello.
All right.
If I get a few seconds to kind of sound it out, I usually do pretty good.
And then YouTube, Jacobison says, hello from Texas. Do you know of other YouTubers you'd recommend to watch EV content? Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Sandy Munro. Okay, Munro Live is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Connor with Out of Spec Motoring, who's currently, by the way, in Munich, and I'm envious because he's got a Porsche Taycan. He's got a press car.
Oh, really?
And he can't wait to get that thing on the Autobahn. It was a little wet, so he says, I'm probably going to, limit it a bit, but as soon as it dries up, I can imagine what he's going to do with that car.
Absolutely. Now, Bearded Tesla Guy is another person that we've watched before, had on our podcast, really have enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Of course, there are the space girls, too. We've got Ellie in space. We've got Jessica Kirsch. Those are the ones that are hanging out at the Starbase. Yeah, if we can think of any others, I will recommend them.
Farzad Mesbahi likes to talk about a lot of EV-related type stuff as well. And he's a good listen. He's a very, very smooth and very articulate.
Very talented. And he has this knack for taking difficult concepts and distilling them and connecting the dots. And it's pretty remarkable. You watch him on his podcast, and he's standing up the entire time, we've noticed.
Yes.
And he's actually able to remember all this stuff. You know, I read most of the time, but you can see Farzad most of the time is looking in the camera, and the contents just spews, you know?
Yeah, and so it's that's a few of them anyway. I know that there are others as well. If anyone out there wants to chime in, feel free to.
Mm-hmm.
And then George Westcott on Facebook says, good morning from Oroville, California. We're expecting 109 today. That's more like it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys also for telling us where you're coming in from. We really enjoy hearing where people are coming from.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Niles has joined us from Denmark. He's with the Bion Danish Genome Institute. He's talking to Jacobson. He said, I think of Jordan Giesiege as one of the few with original content. Yeah, good. We left him out.
Yes.
He ought to be invited to this channel. There is also Ryan Shaw, right, with reasonable summaries of EV news he follows. And good morning, by the way.
Good morning. On Instagram, Bertan _BER1 says, hi from France. Thanks to share your videos. Very interesting. Thank you.
And, you know, since we have some Europeans in the group there, I'm going to jump to one of the other news items. It is actually Tesla's 10-year charging system anniversary. And in Europe today, they are giving away free supercharging. Here we go. And this is a Facebook post from Helena Manosarido in Sweden. She is with the Tesla Roadster Owners Group. And she says today is the anniversary, the 10-year free charging all day today. And 10 years ago, the stations opened in Europe. This is, of course, a gesture of appreciation to the community. It is the largest and most reliable and one of the best fast charging networks in Europe. They say that it is that the charging capabilities are 70% of the network is now open to all other electric cars in Europe and the Middle East. If you remember, it started tentatively, and they would allow, I think it was 7% or so of the other cars to charge. And at this point, it's 70%. On August 29th, 2013, the first 6 stations opened in Norway. 10 years later, the network now spans 36 countries in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, with over 1,000 stations and 13,000 supercharger stalls. They go on with a little bit more data here, but one of the things that those of us in the industry early on were looking at is we knew that Tesla was going to have a difficult time selling electric cars without some sort of fueling system in place.
Right.
That even that 200 or 300 miles didn't do very much for you if you couldn't take a long trip with your car, or it was cumbersome. You had to stop at a KOA campground like you did with the Roadsters. So Tesla, they recognized early on that they were going to have to develop a robust charging system at their expense, of course, to make sure that EV adoption was going to continue. At one point, Elon said that they would not monetize and they weren't looking to make a profit on this charging system. And those of us in business looked at it and said, nonsense. Either he doesn't realize that this has massive potential for a revenue-generating activity, or he really does believe at that point, at least, that they would not, they do not intend to make any money on this. Well, as it turns out, I have another article here where they talk about the potential now for this charging system. And this was from an article that came from some financial analysts, Wedbush, by the way, which is a wealth management consulting type firm. And their headline is the Tesla Supercharger Network will become a $10 to $20 billion a year business. And they go on to say that when they first launched the network in 2012, they did so because no one else was deploying DC fast charging stations for long distance travel. And again, at the time, Elon said they do not plan to make any money from it. It was intended solely to help them sell electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now with Tesla having a fleet of millions of vehicles using the network and now opening it, and they've opened it up to the other EV brands, the financial analysts now are starting to see that the supercharger network has a massive business potential and is going to partly replace gas stations. So they want to value it.
Sure.
That's what they came up with.
And Tesla being able to do this, I like that they put in here that it was originally intended to sell Teslas.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't Tesla trying to soak anybody trying to sell electricity. They were just trying to move cars and open up the market to electric vehicles. Now they are reaching that tipping point where it's the Tesla itself is starting to gain wider acceptance in the industry. So it made sense. And it was so uncontroversial a couple years back when Tesla said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and start charging for this now. And everybody, rather than getting upset or up in arms, most people, I think, were saying, Yeah, we knew it was a good thing that wouldn't last forever. It's probably about time.
Yeah, and that was also anticipated because how long could Tesla give away free electricity? I mean, when was the last time you were able to go to the incumbent auto manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, GM, VW, BMW,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the rest, and they gave you a free ticket for free gasoline for the life of your ownership? It just isn't economically feasible to do that. So
Right.
we all knew that at some point Tesla was going to have to transition from free charging and supercharging to pay-per-view,
Yeah.
which is what we have.
Yeah. And so, and Tesla has positioned itself to almost be like the Standard Oil of electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, Standard Oil, they owned the oil fields, they owned the refineries, they owned the gas stations, they owned it all. Well, Tesla is kind of the same way. They, when we're talking about the Supercharger anniversary, one of the statistics that really struck me was the 99.95% reliability.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, that means 4 hours every year
Of downtime. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what I would call unscheduled downtime. They're going to have scheduled maintenance. They're going to block it off and maintain the chargers. But for some sort of unscheduled downtime, I wish I could have power reliability at my house like that.
Good point. Yeah.
My power company actually tells me how reliable or how frequently I have power at my house.
Mm-hmm.
And the number that they gave me at the anniversary of me purchasing the house from a couple years ago was 99.29%.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as reliable as Tesla superchargers are.
Amazing. Yep. We have an Instagram visitor, Tumus, he says, greetings from Austria. Wie geht's? Danke. Do you think that there will be similar challenges for Tesla to face for their Model 3 like they had to face for their Model S? Speaking about cooling leak issues, dying cells, well, throw in doorknob handles, window regulator issues. Well, as we have pointed out often, these new auto manufacturers are going to go through a quality control improvement process.
Mm-hmm.
No one is able to get it right 100% the first time around. Now, the incumbent auto manufacturers have had decades to perfect their craft, so their stuff tends to work a bit better. But these new guys, they're going to have a difficult time. Later on in the podcast, we'll talk about some casting issues, and that also plays into this. But let's get through some of these questions first.
Yeah, let's definitely do. Bertrand BER1 from Instagram says, hi from France. Thanks to share your videos. And then he continues and says, the Tesla charging network in France is the most well-diffused, reliable, and cheapest charging station. Also, since they've opened the charging station for non-Tesla cars, they're in the way to gain trust in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. By the way, with all these international visitors, we're going to have to expand our language. Now, from France, we would say bonjour.
Yes,
I was just there a couple of months ago in the Dijon region, in the wine growing region, and it's always fun to go to these different countries because you end up picking up the language. You know?
Yes.
And sometimes you're forced to do that because they may not speak enough English for you to get through that restaurant menu or whatever it is. But welcome. We really enjoy our international audience and the domestic ones as well.
Definitely. On YouTube, Nulver53 says, I've only watched one of Kyle's videos. He had a rather scathing review of the Vinfast VF8. First, Kyle's not alone.
Right.
Secondly, just a nugget, because I ever since we've seen that VinFast stock price rocket, went from 35 down to 10, and then Thursday was at 55, and I decided, I'm going to kind of watch this just for fun, because it's way too volatile for me to want to buy. It went up to $82 over the weekend.
Amazing. Yep.
And then this morning, it went from 82 back down to 55.
What an opportunity to short that stock.
I tell you what. Oh, yeah.
Of course, we said that when it was 30, right?
That's right.
And we would have been burned if it went to 50 and then 80.
Knowing me, I would have bought at 80 thinking, okay, finally, I'm in. And just the thought of buying is what would have caused it to go down.
Oh, that FOMO principle is painful. The fear of missing out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there. YouTube, PYGKLB gives us a few more YouTube channels for EV content. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
The Limiting Factor, Tesla Time News, Tesla Daily, and Connecting the Dots.
Hey, there's some good channels there, and there are some channels that I'm going to have to look into myself.
Mm-hmm.
Jacoby Sin on YouTube says, thank you all for what y'all do. Hit the like button, y'all.
Thank you. YouTube Highlanders back. Thank you for joining us. Hi, guys. Tesla Time News is a good one. P.S. Say it. Metro Toledo.
Kindness is always free.
Yep. There you go.
91 Kid on YouTube. Hi from Riverside, California. Can't wait for that Tesla restaurant to open in Santa Monica.
Oh, that's going to be cool. Yeah.
Definitely. Then YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper is back. Like number 8 from Newport Beach, SoCal, caught up soon. Again, smash that thumb, y'all.
Okay, and then YouTube, we have the correct pronunciation of Giesiege is the way you pronounce that. How did I say it? Giesiege, I think, is what I said.
Yeah, and I think it's Giesiege.
Giesiege. And if it's a German name in Germany, it would be Giesiege.
Well, and if it's a hard G, it's going to be Giesiege.
Yeah, there we go. See, we're getting some linguistics opportunities here with this foreign and these visitors coming from an international audience. YouTube 91KITT says, I've always had an idea for a drive-in EV restaurant like the 50s car hop, but for EVs with cool neon signs. Well, there you go.
There
it looks
you go.
like your idea might have migrated to Tesla through osmosis. And, I think the whole point here is try to make it fun. You're going to have to do the construction anyway. You're going to have to pick some colors anyway and some lights. Why not do something like this that's theme-oriented, that's going to attract visitors and eventually become a landmark?
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. My thought is good luck trying to actually get a supercharger space in that place.
Yeah, good point.
Facebook, Zia Learning Academy says, hi, sir. How are you? By the way, we are well, thank you. Hope you are all well and healthy. Great event, and your company is performing a good job. We appreciate it. Please keep it up.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom and those kind words. Instagram, Gideon1021, he says, what's with the sunglasses? Well, we are doing this for a number of reasons that we cannot disclose right now. We keep the mystique and the mystery going. And there is a video in development that will eventually be released, and it will give an explanation as to why there are always sunglasses involved in Gruber video productions.
Yeah,
Well-
go ahead.
I was going to say, I am so glad you asked, Gideon. We might not have the answer for you now, but what we do have for you is these sunglass holders. You can buy them on the Gruber Motor Company website for $79.99. Now, if you use code Richard, you get 10% off.
And if you use code Aaron, you might get the same amount off.
But we don't need to tell them that. This is a competition, remember?
All right, Instagram, rzagar.bashar. He says, can I ask a question? Absolutely, feel free. That's what this is for. Crunch to Grace Hopper with YouTube says, MTW. Help me with that acronym.
Maybe he meant, by the way, BTW.
Okay, that would make sense. By the way, Brian White and Brighter with Herbert Ong, who's been interviewing many of those mentioned.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Also, DroneMan, Joe Tegtmeyer, whose detailed narrations came with his recent flyover of the new recycling site in West Texas coast. Okay, so we've got even more options for you, for those of you interested in what other YouTube channels are dedicated to EV-type broadcast.
We even have one more from Nolver53 on YouTube. State of Charge, he says, is another YouTube channel with good EV content.
I had no idea there were that many until they started to post these. Did you?
I did not. I'm really thankful that you guys have been giving us all this good content. We appreciate that very much.
So we got a picture we want to pop up here, Jesse. I think it's time for the Giga casting picture. Here we go. Yeah, it's called the Model Y. So we were pretty excited about Tesla, again, breaking the mold, figuratively anyway, and doing something that the other manufacturers, the other auto manufacturers have not done at this scale, and that was the Giga casting method. If you remember, the original story goes something like this. Elon, always thinking outside the box, had one of his kids' toys in his hand, and it was a little die-cast car model. And he looked at the bottom of it and he said, you know, this is a great way to do a large structure like this. Why can't you gigacast something larger than these little matchbox, cars?
Mm-hmm.
So they found a company in Italy, and it's an acronym. The name will come to me here, but they actually make large giga casting type machinery. And the fundamental process is it's a large mold or die. What they do is inject molten aluminum at high pressure, high rates of speed, and what you end up with is a casting that is much less expensive than the time-consuming processes of machining, putting multiple pieces together and bolting them or welding them like they normally do with car bodies. So they started to, they first of all bought the machinery from this company in Italy. The name's almost at the tip of my tongue.
It starts with
an I. No? Anyway, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't remember. We've talked about it before too.
And they began to use this for the Model Y casting, which of course reduces production time. It reduces production cost. And it's an amazing piece of machinery. It's about the size of a house or a bus. It's huge. And it would revolutionize car manufacturing. In fact, as Tesla began using it, there were some other manufacturers that not only became interested, but one or two actually began using the same procedure.
Mm-hmm.
The problem currently is there are some owners that are taking the skid plates off the bottom of their Model Ys, and they're looking and finding cracks. And that picture that we have up there is one of those casting cracks. Now, once they became aware of this, they talked to the Tesla service center multiple times, it says, asking whether the car was safe to drive with this crack. And they were assured by the staff that the engineers had said that it was safe and that it was within spec. At this point, there is no documentation that we're aware of that actually gives any kind of specifications. In other words, the crack can be 2 inches long, the thickness or the depth of the crack is this many microns or whatever. In some cases, there were additional pictures here. They took a flashlight and put it on the other side of the crack, and they showed that it actually went all the way through the casting. So this, I'm sure, is a story that's going to evolve rapidly. There are some concerns, of course, from the owners. Is this a safety issue? And Tesla is going to get out in front of this and provide some specifications data or some recalls, depending on what direction this goes.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what direction it goes. I took a look at some of the other pictures that were on this Auto Evolution article that had this particular picture. The one that I thought was most notable is one that was zoomed out just a little bit, and it shows, it's in the top, it's in the right, it's about where the washer fluid would be added to the car. So that means it's probably up in the top near possibly where the windshield is at. I'm not sure exactly where that washer fluid reservoir is on the Model Y, but if it were a Model S, that would be right up by the windshield. So yeah, it's hard to tell if this is a real cause for concern. I mean, on the surface, it seems like it. But for now, we're going to have to kind of go with what the engineers at Tesla have said, that, hey, this isn't an issue. It's within spec.
And the reason we're reporting it, this is definitely in the news currently. There are already some online articles that are beginning to talk about this, and it'll be interesting to see how this whole issue begins to evolve and get resolved.
By all means.
YouTube, Highlander says, Brighter with Herbert is also awesome. Probably another EV
Yeah,
type of
definitely
channel.
another EV channel. And PYGKLB on YouTube. MTW is My Tesla Weekend. It's Brian White's channel for construction and production news.
Okay,
Thank you for the clarification.
So it wasn't a typo, guys. It wasn't BTW.
Yeah,
Sometimes these guys do type the questions wrong, and I will read whatever's up there. My name is Ron Bergen.
But yeah, no, it was right.
MTW.
MTW, it was right. We just didn't know what it stood for.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
So Highlander on YouTube is joining us again. Idra, he says, that's the press manufacturer.
Correct. IDRA, yep.
There we go. There we go. Thank you for that. It's on the tip of both of our tongues. So,
and for those of you that want to see the detail and even get a plant tour, Sandy Munro actually went there earlier this year, I believe, and it's a great video worth watching if you want to see the magnitude of these machines and some of the design challenges in, creating a casting machine this large.
Yes. And then on YouTube, Tesla Tech says, great stuff. Thank you very much. And on YouTube, Peter L. has a question for us. First, welcome. He says, I recently discovered you guys. Great content. Here's the question. If one wanted to store an older Model S for a few months, would disconnecting the high voltage and 12-volt battery be a viable solution?
It is not necessary. Unlike the Roadster, which actually will get bricked if you don't charge it for a couple of months. The later model Teslas have contactors inside that will open up and that will prevent any type of damage to the main propulsion battery. The 12-volt battery, that's another issue. That probably would be a good idea to disconnect, and it's not that difficult typically, because once the large propulsion battery shuts down, if the state of charge got too low, it also shuts down the 12-volt charging support from the DC to DC converter. So, yeah, that would be a good idea, is disconnecting the 12 volts. The best idea, however, is if you're going to store an older Model S or a Roadster or any of these EVs, take your level 1 charge cable, leave it plugged in the charge port door, and the car will decide when it needs a charge or not.
Yeah, that's definitely the best advice, because those, the cables that come with the Trident connector for the Tesla Model S typically have a 110 adapter that you can plug onto the end. So you unplug your 220, which is what's normal and typically used, and plug in a little 110 adapter, and then you just plug it into the wall and let the car sit. And that would keep the car charged. That would help keep the 12-volt battery charged as well.
Instagram, Tumus from Austria _awesome. He says, question number 2 incoming. He says, half currently Teslas and other manufacturers are putting 100 kW batteries in their cars. I have not seen a higher value. Do you think that this is already the limit? The second question is, or will there be a 150 kW or even 200 kW battery in the same size? Well, we don't have a crystal ball, but we do know that battery technology continuously improves and evolves into something more efficient, something faster, something lighter, something better. Less flammable, too, is an important one. At this point, I think 100 kW is generally the standard for passenger cars, and we're talking about 1,000 pounds of weight. So that's probably another factor that they consider, is, do we really want to put that much weight into a passenger car?
Right.
But we do know that there are larger batteries, like the semi-truck, for example, the Hummer. And I think that the Lucids also have something slightly larger than 100 kW, and this is where the audience probably can chime in.
If I remember right, Lucid has 130 kilowatts in their high-range sedan. Ford, in its high range and higher end battery, is actually a 225 kilowatt hour battery. And the standard Ford Lightning battery is 160 So that's just a couple of other examples. The larger battery sizes are available out there, but at some point, you're going to get to that law of diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember right off the top of my head what the Rivian battery sizes are. I do think their long-range battery is over 100 kilowatts as well.
Mm-hmm. And we're definitely seeing rapid evolution in battery technology, so it'll be fascinating to watch this evolve over the next decade or two.
Yes, most definitely.
TikTok, Charles Ballasing says, it's interesting now that the full self-driving is based on training from real-world videos. Doesn't stop on stop signs completely like a human. Oh, they're doing the California stops now, FSD? I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize that.
Now, this is an interesting concept. If you get pulled over and you're ticketed for doing a California stop through that stop sign and not stopping completely, who gets the ticket?
That's a good question.
I mean, from a fairness standpoint, and of course, the law is not be fair, it would be the car, Tesla perhaps, right? But I would, if I had to place bets here, I would say that you're going to get the ticket because you're the one that selected FSD to let it drive.
Well, and does that mean with your full self-driving that it will automatically start to speed if it knows that it's an area where traffic speeds are a little higher than the speed limit?
Good point. Yeah.
Well, can't you manually override full self-driving at any time? So if it starts to California roll, you can slam on the brakes and do that. I would still think you would still be liable for it because you can still control it.
Yeah. Or even worse yet, if you get rogue FSD that tries to outrun the cop, who gets the felony pursuit charge?
Rogue FSD, I like that term.
Oh, that's awesome. YouTube Highlander has joined us. He says porosity and die casting are a huge issue.
Yeah, good point. And probably things play into it, such as humidity, moisture in the air. Of course, the quality of aluminum that is used.
Absolutely.
Are they going to have to shift that around, it looks like. But yeah, this definitely looks like it could be a problem that needs to be solved.
Highlander on YouTube also asks, does that battery advice also hold true for Rivian vans?
Oh, most certainly. These battery, the battery chemistries and technologies currently are very similar across all of the cars. The original Priuses, for example, with the metal hydride batteries and the pouch batteries.
Yeah.
You don't see much of that anymore today. Most companies have gone to that multi-cell, cylindrical cell type design, whether it's 18650, 2170, 4680. It seems to be a fairly efficient design at this point anyway.
And I don't know of any automaker that adopted the Roadster style battery energy distribution system where the battery doesn't turn off automatically. And because with Roadsters, if you want to get your battery to truly be de-energized for storage, you have to actually pull the service plug. That service plug equivalent, I believe, on virtually all other electric vehicles is automatic, like the automatic contactors.
It is not
on a
manual.
Model S.
Yes. And it was clearly an afterthought in the Tesla Roadster because it is in the most inaccessible spot you can imagine. And some of us that don't have long enough arms or skinny enough arms can't even pull that service plug. It's actually buried inside the quarter panel on the driver's side underneath the struts for the deck lid. So you literally have to do some twisting motions and then try to get up under there to pull up a small lever, which disables the micro switch part of the interlock. And then you have to pull it directly toward the back of the car, which oftentimes is difficult because it's been in there for a while and it's almost seized in there.
Right. And so, thankfully we have Victor, who is skinny enough with long enough arms to just be able to reach it. My arms might be long enough, but they're certainly not skinny enough. And
since I'm on a semi-rant here, the final part I left out of this is that little orange plastic service plug with the little handle on it now is 15 years old in the Tesla. It is brittle plastic, and about 20% of the time we end up breaking them trying to remove them. And here's the other craziness that goes with this is that part is extremely difficult to source. It's not in production anymore.
Sure.
So anyway, the Tesla Roadster, I think everyone learned a lot with that car, and many of the improvements, I think, in the later EVs are the result of the design issues that are in the Tesla Roadster. All right, so moving along here, we've got an article here. Everything you know about EV repair costs is wrong. It is not, it is well, I don't want to word this. It is almost common thought that EVs have a lot of repair issues. And as this article says, I'm going to read part of this to you. Clickbait tends to smell. And when it comes to EV scaremongering, they detected something fishy about the two tales being spread like gospel by the media. First, Teslas are being routinely totaled by insurers, even after relatively minor fender benders. And secondly, collision repair costs for Teslas and other EVs are out of control. Well, as it turns out, they make a case here that none of these things are even remotely true, and it's proven by analysis of every smash, bash, and insurance claim in America. In fact, they say, gasoline cars are 3 times as likely to be totaled after an accident than Teslas or other EVs. And this is according to the Highway Loss Data Institute, HLDI for short. They say that internal combustion engine models were written off after 18.4% of collisions versus 6.1% for EVs. Now, that goes against what is currently regarded as conventional wisdom, does it not?
Oh, it absolutely does. I really like that they also address the potential counter-argument of, well, EVs are more expensive. Of course, you're not going to total them as often. And they said, hey, even the 2019 and newer ICE luxury vehicles, the ones that are about as likely to be totaled as an EV because they're roughly the same value, are written off after 7.1% of collisions, and the EVs are only 6.1%.
Mm-hmm. So the assertions that EVs are being totaled left and right, they say, are the horror stories that keep insurers up at night, the risk management people.
Yes.
And they say that incidents are few and far between. So that's an interesting new twist on what people normally oftentimes use as an argument against getting into electric vehicles.
And I've got a couple of takes on this particular one. Of course, I love when somebody comes out with a contrarian opinion. Mm-hmm. I had come out of now almost 2 weeks ago with that contrarian opinion on Lucid, and that's just been fun to watch how that video has gone. In second, though, insurers avoid risk. They're in the risk business. Really, they're in the risk avoidance business. Their
risk
job,
management, yes.
Yeah, their job is to put a dollar amount on a risk. And when they don't know what that dollar amount is going to be, they're going to go conservative. We did see in 2017 a number of Tesla's Model S's, because we bought a number of Model S's, that were totaled due to water damage from the likes of Hurricane Harvey or Hurricane Ida, I think it was, in Florida a little bit later that fall. And some of these cars dried out to the point when they got here to Arizona, they drove off the truck. They were fine. Mm-hmm. So there was some of that, why did they total this car type of questioning going on internally. However, they've got better data now than they had in 2017. Yeah. And this is not only true for the S, this is going to be true for the Model 3, for the Model Y, and of course for the Roadsters. That's all they're looking for. As the data set increases, the likelihood that they total the car because they don't know about it is going to dramatically decrease. And then it becomes about the quality of the car itself.
Yeah.
So my third thought, of course, is we're probably going to see a little bit of this on the Cybertruck. Mm-hmm. There'll be Cybertrucks that come out and get into minor damage, and the car, the auto shop is going to go to the insurance company and say, I don't know how much you're going to fix it. It might be $5,000, it might be $50,000.
Yeah.
And the insurance company then will say, you know what, if it might be 50,000, we're just gonna this is a $51,000 vehicle, we're gonna go ahead and total it.
And that's when Richard comes in on the Copilot auction and finally gets his Cybertruck.
That's right. And you spend $10,000 for it and do the 5,000 in repairs.
You know, that was the very argument against using Giga casting methods, because in a collision, if you damage and crumple that right front fender, and you've got some structural damage going into the frame, if it's a portion of frame that can be replaced and you bolt in a new section, that's going to be far less expensive than changing the entire underbody of the car in a Giga casting type build, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the one of the stories that I wanted to share is one of those Tesla Model S's that we purchased that was flood damaged. Oftentimes, once the cars came in, we would be able to hack into the computer, and we would be able to get the previous owner information. You know, the auction houses don't give you that. So in this case, I called the gentleman in Ohio who had this white Tesla Model S that was deemed as totaled because it was a water damage car, or flood damage as they called it.
Right.
The story he told me, he says, you know, I'm not sure what they were talking about. My wife was driving down the road. There was a flash flood going across the road. She thought she'd be able to drive through it. She did, and a little bit of the water came up over the hood, up to the windshield cowl, and then ran down, you know, into the windshield cowl. Well, on a Tesla Model S, in that approximate area is a fuse block.
Right.
And it has some relays. Well, the CAN signals are zipping through there, and if water gets in there and it's conductive, slightly conductive, it's going to rearrange some of those signals. And the car at that point decided, you know, my wiring has gone awry, and there's something wrong, and it shut down the car. Well, the insurance companies really aren't trained, or at that time, and maybe still not, on how to properly assess flood damage or water damage in an electric vehicle. They tend to err on the side of caution because they're thinking, oops, high voltage, electricity, water, that's a bad combination, needs to be totaled for safety reasons, right?
Sure.
Well, as it turned out, this was one of those cars that once we dried the fuse block and took some of the corrosion off of there, the car was just fine. And that car drove for many years, actually. So there's one example of a overzealous appraiser, you know, totaling a car that really was quite functional. And then, like you mentioned, that car that came on the transporter from Louisiana, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
And it had dried up enough, especially in this time of year here in Phoenix with our heat waves. This is a good time to buy flood damaged cars. I didn't mean that, by the way. I was kind of joking there. You know, the bottom line, if you're looking for an analysis, whether this was a good program for us or not, overall, it was not. It was like going to Vegas. You're going to have winners and losers. And I'm not even sure we broke even on those 22 Model S's that we bought in 2017 from those two hurricanes.
I'm actually thinking that we did not break even. I mean, for every winner, for every car that we drove off the trailer,
Yeah.
I think we ended up with a car like that beautiful satin green P100D.
Ludicrous.
It was a ludicrous, and it was so tempting because it looked so good. We pulled it off the trailer only to find out that it had water up above the dash, and it was salt water.
Yeah.
And so everything inside was permanently fried.
So it was moving metal around and doing electrolysis inside the car. Salt water is very conductive.
Yeah. So Niles from the Biodentist Genome Institute has another comment for us. He says, your repair cost article doesn't match the stories that I hear from Tesla taxi owners here. And I believe here for him is
Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah.
It says they say it's scary expensive, even compared with Mercedes. But maybe they're too heavy on the foot. By Mercedes, he says, I mean the diesel version.
Mm-hmm.
That is possible. It's I think the difference is going to be the anecdotal evidence, in other words, the stories that you hear, versus the more empirical evidence, like these guys went and looked at the highway safety data and overall collision damage and repair costs, and as well as the incidences of a car being totaled for a region over a time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Tesla taxis, that's a novel idea. When we flew into Schiphol about even 10 years ago, actually, there were a number of Tesla Model S's in their taxi fleet outside the airport, Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And it was inspiring because at that time there weren't many EVs on the road, but it looked like someone had done some math and said, these cars would probably save us some money in reduced maintenance and reduced fuel costs.
And the logic makes sense, especially for the older Teslas if you're able to do something like free supercharging. But even with the newer Teslas, the overall logic of, hey, I'm going to be putting a bunch of miles on this car in a very rapid fashion. I'm going to see all of that savings really get accelerated to the front end of my owner. Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So another news item here, GigaBerlin. Turns out Tesla apparently bought a railroad track, and they are going to be shuttling employees with a train that they own from the Erkner train station to GigaBerlin, which is going to replace the existing bus shuttle. Now, bus shuttle, Tesla, I don't think they have any EV buses, so there's probably some emissions involved there.
Probably.
And the train, most likely as well, although Europe does have a lot of electric trains, so maybe that's going to improve emissions. But anyway, they say that this train will commute 60 times daily. It will bring 1,500 employees directly to the factory at the change of each shift, totaling 4,500 employees that will be shuttled daily. The train service is free of charge and was approved starting September 4th. So it looks like GigaBerlin, which has been in operation, by the way, since March of 2022, currently employs 11,000 workers and builds all the Model Y and all electric crossovers there at GigaBerlin for Europe. It also apparently has the most advanced paint factory capable of applying exclusive colors spreading across the Eastern Hemisphere, as they say.
Yes. And I would love to see pictures of that particular train. I do wonder if it's considered, more of a heavy rail, which is, diesel locomotive and passenger cars, so on and so forth, or if it's more of a light rail system, which typically would have maybe the electric wires running above it, and it would be electrified instead of a diesel at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of trains in Europe have that overhead electrical connection.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's the case in this case as well.
So Lucid is back in the news. It looks like the Bank of New York Mellon Corp has increased ownership of Lucid by 4.4%. Actually, what they purchased was approximately 2.8 million shares of Lucid stock. And again, this is seen as growing confidence, perhaps, in the stock. And we talk about this all the time.
Mm-hmm. In fact, if Jesse wanted to show, I went ahead and saved a picture of the 25 top owners of Lucid. I went and pulled that again this morning, and that's on the list there. Bank of New York Mellon is one of those top 25 owners. They're about 18th or 19th on the list. As of this morning, this ownership list shows the shares that are owned and have been purchased since the last time that Lucid reported earnings, which would have been around the end of Q2. And so you see with the vast majority of these, they're looking at change percentage being up. Don't move that yet, Jesse. The one that caught my eye was that Bank of America Corporation. They're number 5 on the list. Last week we were talking about Bank of America, and they were up about 633% in their ownership stake in Lucid.
Right.
Well, obviously they bought the dip over the weekend because this last week Lucid had dropped just below $6 a share. their holdings from the end of June till now have now gone up by 853%. They are not only buying, they are continuing to buy Lucid stock. Now, if you scroll down toward the bottom, you're going to see the, I think they call it Bank of New York Mellon, about 18th or 19th on the list.
Real quick, of course, during the show, I'm not opening my Robinhood account and looking at this, but yeah, Lucid is definitely up today. Again, not financial advice. Which one are we looking for?
Just keep on going down a little bit. The
New York Bank.
Yeah, it's
that's
under
the bottom.
BNY Mellon. No, go back down to the bottom.
Oh yeah, there it is.
There it is, BNY Mellon. And as of this morning, instead of 2.8 million shares, they actually own 3.76 million shares now.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I wanted to just emphasize that when I saw that list, I'm like, this is today's numbers. Not only are these guys buying shares, they're continuing to buy shares over time, even when that offering that Lucid put out in the middle of the last quarter was up there. So I thought that was pretty remarkable.
Well, they are financial experts. And if they have that confidence and faith in Lucid, I saw it last week. I think it was Thursday, $5.88 a share.
Yeah.
Today, I think it was up 4% or so by this morning. So maybe people might be waking up or changing their mind about the volatility of Lucid stock.
I know they're higher. They're experts. I'm not. I'm not that type of finance expert. But I do find that the numbers like this are very fascinating to see. And as the share availability has gone up, it's been pretty remarkable to see how many institutional investors have bought extra into Tesla, into Lucid, and continue to do so.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we started to do this week, guys, was we've done many videos. How many, Jesse? 600-700 out there on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, it's hundreds. I'm not sure exactly, but there's quite a few. You're talking about how many are currently posted?
Yes, exactly. I think with shorts we were up around 700 or so. But
We're well past 900.
But we are past 900.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
On the main channel? Or on the shorts channel?
The combination, I think.
Combination,
So
yeah.
one of the things we looked at was there's some cool content in some of these, like when Pete goes on a rant, for example. That was a fun one. And last week, we were talking about Scotty Kilmer, who is also not EV enthusiast, just the opposite, actually. He's completely ICE vehicles, and he has some very characteristic gesturing that he does when he's on video. And I did an impersonation, and the guys loved it. So we're going to come out with a short clip that shows me and him to see how close that impersonation was.
That's going to be funny.
Yeah, we have another one for you, too, that we found today that we're going to work on.
Okay. So stay tuned. Watch our YouTube channel, because what you're going to see is some short bursts like that of really interesting content condensed into a short video. Yeah,
we're going to do it with the Q&As, so we'll take really good questions from the past shows and do it. We're going to do guests that we have, like Farzad is going to be one of the first ones. There's going to be a lot more content coming here over the next few weeks.
Yeah. One of them is with Farzad Misbahi, and we asked him about hydrogen cars, and I think you'll be fascinated to see what his prediction is regarding hydrogen cars. So stay tuned. There'll be little short clips and out on our YouTube channel for some more entertainment and more EV information.
Pete, there was I saw something on our library this morning. We take before the show. We'll go through the articles. I'll read extra articles. We'll look at things that we've got in the library, and in our photo library. I didn't see that we had a written article, but I thought it was a couple of fascinating pictures. One of them is of a Model 3 that was hit head on by a drunk driver.
Oh yes, yeah.
Can we pop that particular picture up, Jesse? That was just it frightening and scary and but amazing at the same time. There we go.
So the backstory on this, and I intended to bring it into the discussion, but you reminded me, I forgot. Thank you.
Yeah.
This was a Tesla Model 3 hit head-on by a drunk driver.
Pete, we need a little on your mic there.
Okay.
Thanks.
He was hit by a Honda SUV going 55 miles an hour, and you can see how mangled the front end of this Model 3 is. The driver in the Model 3 walked away from this accident. Again, it's a testament to the safety features built into the Teslas. I mean, the car is not only mangled in the front, but it looks like it's skewed, twisted. And there's the owner. It looks like he's got his right arm in a sling, and that looked like to be about the extent of it. The rest of the story is that he was hit at 60 miles an hour while coming to a stop. He says the batteries took the blunt of the hit, or the brunt of the hit, and the vehicle was totaled. Now, there's no surprise there. I don't think any body shop's going to want to tackle this one. Yeah, as someone pointed out, someone was watching over him, and someone else pointed out, I thought the Tesla would fly over this other car, but it is truly remarkable sometimes how well these Teslas are able to withstand collisions. The other one that made the headlines about 4 months ago or so was a car that actually fell off a cliff in California.
Yes.
It landed on its roof, partially in the water, and the family actually was able to walk out of the car and escape.
Yeah, that was a Model Y in that case, and it was and I don't remember the reason if anyone ever found out if it was intentional or not. I think it was a guy that was driving and lost control on a wet road, ended up going off of about a 250-foot cliff off of Highway 1, and down onto the rocks near the Pacific Ocean.
Right. Yep. Remarkable that these cars are able to withstand that kind of damage at times. Thanks for pointing that out.
Oh, you're welcome. The thing that really struck me was the structural integrity those battery packs add to these cars. Now this Model 3, I'm going to speculate myself that this Model 3 may have had those 4680 cells with the structural battery pack in them. And that is what that structural battery pack is designed to do. It's designed to help absorb energy from a collision to help keep the cabin intact, which then, of course, keeps the driver safe.
And of course, as you can see, there are no flames, nothing ignited. So it looks like battery technology continues to improve.
By all means. And and there's another thing that we need to catch up on. This goes from a week ago today. George from Watch Rich Rebuilds channel had come to us and asked a question about a trailer. You remember that question? It was about the electric Lightship trailer. So Jesse, we have a couple of pictures of that up there as well. If you wanted to pull up either Lightship 1 or Lightship 2, I took some time to look up the electric Lightship. And it's a startup EV manufacturer. They're founded by former Tesla employees Ben Parker and Toby Kraus. This trailer is called the Electric Lightship. It is planned to kick off production of a solar-powered battery electric camper trailer in late 2024. This Lightship L1 trailer, it's actually a pop-up trailer, by the way. When you're traveling like that trailer overall is only about 7 feet tall.
Okay.
When you're parked, you can raise the ceiling on the trailer to just over 10 feet, and it has a 7-foot 6-inch interior. Now, this Lightship trailer also comes with its own 80 kilowatt hour battery pack and its own electric drivetrain, that's one of the most remarkable features of this trailer. Because in theory, whether you're pulling it with an ICE vehicle or whether you're pulling it with an electric vehicle, that 80 kilowatt hour battery pack plus additional motor will allow the vehicle towing this trailer to experience the same type of range or miles per gallon that they would get if it were not towing anything. This trailer also has vehicle to home and vehicle to vehicle charging capabilities. So it can be a mobile charger for EVs or for a house. Now, the cost is not cheap. This it's expected to cost about $125,000, but it can be partially offset with a $6,600 federal tax rebate for RVs.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions on the trailer that I couldn't find answers to. For example, I'm going to assume this trailer probably has its own braking system. Can this trailer be put into a dynamic charge mode? I.e., we go up a long hill to, as we're headed north out of Phoenix, you have a hill that climbs up about 2,000 feet in elevation. If you're coming down the hill, can you turn the trailer's regenerative braking on and have it charge its own battery while you're pulling it with your vehicle? Mm-hmm. And will it automatically turn on or turn off that regenerative charging based on the load that it has? That would both help to slow your vehicle down without the need to overextend its own brakes, which is a wonderful safety feature, and would add charge to the battery while you're driving, mm-hmm. which is also kind of a very cool feature. Finally, the question that I had was, if this trailer doesn't put a load on the vehicle that's towing it because it has its own motor, how small of a vehicle can you get away with?
Right. You were talking about that. Yeah. Like an Aptera, perhaps?
Yeah, like the little three-wheeled Aptera. Could you imagine a three-wheeled vehicle pulling a big old 28-foot trailer like that?
It'd be a sight to behold.
It really would be. But so to follow up on that particular promise, I wanted to make sure that we had some information out about this Lightyear trailer. Sandy Monroe did a really good video on this. It's about a 35-minute long look that he did when the trailer was out in Chicago this last summer. So he went in, toured the prototype of the trailer. They were up underneath it talking a little bit about it. So that was a pretty good in-depth video describing the trailer's features as well.
You know, one of the images that we had up here a few minutes ago was the top of this this RV, and it was full of solar panels. Look at all of those.
Those solar panels can generate about 3 kilowatts worth of energy per hour on that trailer. So if that trailer has vehicle-to-vehicle charging capabilities, that means that you could run your Rivian down or your Ford Lightning down somewhat, and then over the course of a couple days, keep that thing plugged in. It's going to charge at least as fast as your typical 120 volt 15 amp outlet would.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
Did you mention if it is able to throw energy back into the battery while you're driving, while you're towing?
That's one of the questions that I had, of if you could throw energy back into its battery while you're driving or towing. I don't know. I think that would be a wonderfully cool feature because, again, when you're trying to go camping, if you're going up hills, you're probably going to be pulling the trailer and having it
consuming
energy. But if you're going downhill, something like that trailer, if you could put it into a generation mode, mm-hmm. that would be pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. Very cool. All right, so it looks like we've got some more comments. Niles said, and he's talking about the taxis in Amsterdam mm-hmm. that I saw 10 years ago. He said that they became taxis early because there was free charging. Of course, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, they were going to consume a lot of energy, and that would definitely reduce their cost of ownership for those taxis.
On YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper talking about our totaled car and the Model Y cliff dive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then Highlander came back on YouTube and says, "Don't understand, Crunch. I did work for Cleveland Cliffs."
Okay.
Cleveland Cliffs, by the way, is a large auto parts manufacturer based out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Did not know that. Okay. Instagram, Hunter Smith says, how many miles will battery last for Model Y? There are no, there's no data yet available that will actually document or predict battery lifespans. And we've talked about this often. The Tesla model, or the Tesla Roadster, was really the first produced multi-cell 18650 battery pack. The original design life was 10 years. That was the prediction. They're going on 15 years. And what we're now beginning to see is Tesla may be adjusting their predictions, because we saw a bulletin come out a couple of weeks ago that they were predicting their power walls were 20 to 22 year lifespan type products, and these also use multi-cell type modules. I guess the answer to that is no one really knows. There are some failures, sometimes premature failures. Sometimes there is water ingress. There's a breach where the battery, gets fluids inside it. There could be coolant leaks inside the battery. All of those will affect the integrity of that battery system. Or you have some infant mortality. Sometimes the cells go resistive before their time. I'm sure that as the years go by, we'll have some more meaningful data, but right now it's crystal ball time when anybody asks, how long will my battery last for my EV?
Sure. And even the way that a person treats their EV battery is going to dramatically change how long that EV battery lasts. The person who doesn't have the hard starts and hard stops and doesn't charge the battery above 80 to 85% and never makes the battery below 20%, they're probably going to have a battery that lasts a little longer than the person who is constantly going to high voltage charging, putting it up to 100%, driving hard, driving it down to 10% or less.
We did also make a video called The Million Mile Tesla that dives into the numbers associated with this. So, Hunter, if you want to get the numbers and some pretty good information on it, go to our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and look up A Million Mile Tesla. There's a lot of information there.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
YouTube Highlander, he says, look up the prime owners of Bank of America.
Okay, I actually did that just now.
All right.
Yeah, here are the four top stockholders for the Bank of America. Number one, Berkshire Hathaway Investments. Second, Vanguard Investments. Third, BlackRock Fund, Professional Investments. Fourth, SSGA Funds Management, large investor. So it looks like we've got these large institutional investment firms that all own Bank of America. How many of them do you think are using the Bank of America investment to buy into Lucid stock?
And many of those are on that list as well, so they own Lucid stock directly.
Yes, and many of them do. Other members of the top 10 include Fidelity Management, Geode Capital, Norges Bank Investment, T. Rowe Price Investments, and then the J.P. Morgan Investment Fund itself.
TikTok, Charles Balasing asks, have you ever repaired any Tesla power walls? How good are they? Your thoughts? We have not repaired the power walls themselves, but we repair the same modules that are in the power walls that are in the Tesla Model S, for example. And yeah, we repair those regularly. It's a remarkable design. It's a combination of cells that are connected in series and parallel, fusible links on both the plus and the minus side, or the anodes and the cathodes, and remarkably reliable, actually. Lots of power, high power density, and it's become one of the most successful designs in the EV business, in that a lot of manufacturers are copying that design.
On YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper has more color for us on that Model Y that went off the cliff. He said to Highlander, he says that Pacific Palisades, California 250-foot cliff dive was by a suicide attempt. A man wanted to take his wife and 2 kids with him. All survived, and he was detained. And of course, there was no fire.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I did not research it and get the rest of that story. I know there were some allegations early on that may have been the case. That's tragic. That's really sad.
It is. It really is. And thank you very much, Crunch, for helping to fill in details on it. Having since you live not too far away from there, I'm glad that you had the extra info for us.
So we have a article that came out by Teslarati, which does a lot of EV and especially Tesla stuff, of course. And shout out to Joey Klinder. He is one of their reporters, and he emailed and he wanted to get an update on what's happening to the 3 Chinese Roadsters. They were supposed to have arrived August 17th, and of course they're not here yet. So the backstory on those is, with the tropical storm that was brewing off the coast of California and Mexico, hurricane down in Mexico and tropical storm by the time it got up here, the ships that were headed toward Long Beach held and took a detour, and rather than try to go to port. So the ship that has the 3 Roadsters on it right now was docked off of the coast of Vietnam up until about a week or so ago, and those 3 sea containers are back on the ocean headed toward Long Beach. The anticipated arrival time now is September 5th. What we're not sure about is what, if any, backlog exists at the dock at Long Beach, because if you remember during COVID, there were literally hundreds of ships, ocean-going ships, with cargo waiting to unload, and they had to wait in line. So this tropical storm may have created some of those types of delays as well. So far, we're anticipating the middle of September will most likely be when either the sea containers are placed on common carrier transport or will be released to be picked up. And at that point, they're coming to our Gruber Motor Company building. We'll be inviting social media and the media. It'll be quite an event again, and we'll have a lot more for you to see. In the meantime, the $2 million bid that was logged a couple 3 months ago or so has opted out, and the fundamental reason for that is this was a leasing company in Canada that was planning on putting these cars on the road. Since it was a new company, they felt that the visibility and notoriety of these cars would help them launch their car leasing business, EV car leasing business. But it turns out that the insurance companies balked at 2 things. One, they don't insure anything over 10 years, and they couldn't get a waiver for that. For private individuals, that's not an issue, but for commercial applications, apparently that is a sticking point. But the final thing that that made the insurance companies back out was that they felt parts were going to be too hard to get for a Tesla Roadster. We live this, by the way. We know how hard parts are to get. We have to make parts oftentimes and get creative and use collision damage cars and all that. But again, an insurance company is in the risk management business, and if they're looking at insuring, $700,000 cars that may have a problem getting parts if they do get into an accident, that became too much of a concern for them. So the $2 million bid is off the table. However, once these cars get here, they get cleaned up. We do diagnostics on them. We confirm the odometer readings. We disposition them. We completely inventory what came with the cars. We think that the bidding will resume and ignite a new round of bids for these cars.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the bid does end up somewhere north of $2 million when all is said and done. The person who bids on the cars is probably not going to be, or who gets the cars, I think is probably not going to be somebody who is as worried about the insurability of the cars as these guys would be. First, they're probably going to have them privately held in storage as an investment or something like that. And so that makes them easier to insure, to your point. And secondly, they're probably going to have their enough individual wealth to not have to worry quite as much about the devastating impact to their finances of losing a car that would be $700,000.
Sure. And as I pointed out to Joey Klinder, the Teslarati reporter, my preference is, and we can't control it, of course, because we're merely a matchmaking service. We're the dating service. My choice for these cars would be that they go into a collection and they don't try to put them on the road. What would be the point in that? Every time you take out your car for a drive, you would lose tens of thousands of dollars in valuation because you're putting miles on the car. So, again, this will hopefully end up being a Picasso on the wall in someone's car collection rather than something that they're going to want to put on the road and drive. For those of you wanting to drive a Tesla Roadster, go to our Roadster matchmaking site. There are literally dozens and dozens of cars for sale that would give you that, thrill of being able to turn one into a daily driver.
Yep. It looks like we have just a few more questions to get through, and then it'll be about time to wrap up. First, Van Goat Wagon, Richard, Jesse, Mike, and Pete.
He says, did I miss anyone?
Well, I think there's somebody sitting over there in the corner that we might have missed.
Aaron.
Aaron is over there in the corner, and I don't know a Mike.
Yeah, we don't have a mic here. You're close, Van Goat. You're
Well,
so close.
We do have Mike here. As a matter of fact, we've got 5.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in front of me.
So Richard, Jesse, Aaron, Mark, and Pete.
So the question is, how long does it take a Tesla to brick itself due to sitting inactive? And let's qualify that carefully. The only Tesla that bricks or goes dead if it's not being charged is a Tesla Roadster. The other later model Teslas can live without a charge. We've had some that were collision damaged or flood damaged that sat out there for years, and the batteries are fine because they disconnect themselves.
Right.
And it's like storing product on a shelf in a warehouse, basically. The Tesla Roadster will brick on you within a couple of months without a charge. It happens fairly quickly, and the fix is, if it comes to a shop like ours, we can revive and recover that battery pack and put it back on the road.
You know, for those 3 Roadsters that are coming from China, that's going to be one of the bigger questions that we have to answer. Was the service plug pulled on those Roadsters? Because if it was, then the battery will be in the same type of state as the Model S or one of the later models, where there's nothing drawing down the voltage on that battery. So, are the batteries still alive?
And then the question will be, can a multi-cell battery pack like this survive for 13 years without any drain? Will those batteries possibly still be good? Now, no one really believes that at this point, but it is an unanswered question that we're looking forward to digging into.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. I'm on the side of no, they're probably going to be dead, but it's a fun thing to think about. On TikTok, Electronics Pulse shared the live stream. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you. Instagram, Mohammed_Armo says, hello from Iran. Well, welcome.
Good afternoon to you.
It's like 10 p.m. over there.
10 p.m.? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Good evening.
Yeah.
Then Highlander on YouTube says, I don't know either. I watch to learn.
Okay, cool. And then TikTok, Hot Rails Rose says, will the cars be sold as a package or individual? Talking about the 3 Chinese barn find Roadsters again. By the way, when I call them barn find, someone pointed out in the comments on actually Joey Klinder's, on his, the online article, these aren't the first barn find. Apparently in the last century, a Baker or something was found as a barn find. The Baker was an electric car. Kind of looked like a Model T, the coach style.
Gosh. Okay, yeah.
So we may not have the first barn find roads or barn find EVs. But yeah, we'll do some more research on that and definitely make that part of the discussion in the future. But now, will they be sold as a package or individually? Let me answer that real quick here.
You're good.
The preference is that they are sold as a package. However, this is a bidding process, and the sellers have the ultimate choice as to how they want to handle this. So if you're interested in one, make an offer, bid on it, and make sure that you indicate that you're looking for only one.
Well, I think that's about it for what we have for questions today. Looks like we're just coming up on time as well. I know that we're going to be here tomorrow at the Tesla Roadster Roundtable. We'll discuss things that are Tesla Roadster specific related. but come to us with your questions. If you have questions that are not Roadster, time depending, we will entertain that as well. Thursday at, again, same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard or Pacific Daylight Time. We'll be here for the EV podcast, and then on Sundays you guys have a whole lot of fun.
Yes,
That AI podcast. Real quick, guys.
podcast.
We have Sold as Stone coming in on Instagram. Says, sorry, guys, I'm in Florida. We're getting a little weather issues today. Thanks for the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome.
You bet.
And
Thank
then,
you.
Yeah, YouTube Nolvers53, have a great day. Thank you. YouTube Highlander says Cliffs is a mining company, North America's largest producer of rolled steel. Still on great terms with them.
Thank you, Highlander, for that. That's what Cleveland. I've known the name Cleveland Cliffs before, and only had recently heard that they how big they were, and they recently bought a company. I don't remember who it was.
Well, again, it's we're on an hour and a half. Thank you for joining us. We'll hopefully see you tomorrow, and Thursday is the continuation of this EV podcast.
Take care.